The New Normal in Education, an analysis of improving the quality of distance modular learning and its effect to the life experiences of senior high school students of Punta Linao National High School. Abstract. The Philippine education system is now adapting to the new blended learning, merely because of the pandemic, which is the COVID-19. Punta Linao National High School is located in a rural area where there is a limited access and not all students have their own gadgets to use in different blended learnings. The school conducted a survey and it resulted that the PNHS will be using modular distance learning. Punta Linao National High School prioritizes the quality of its learning modules. These modules are the primary learning materials for the students. One of the crucial process involved in this paper is on how we can improve the learning materials, how this new system affects the life experiences of the students of PNHS. Also, one of the process involved in this continuous improvement of the learning modules is instructional design. This paper will report the efforts done to improve on the quality of PNHS learning materials. What process is considered a success story from one point of module may differ from another. The findings from the study accentuate further improvements needed for the process, not only for the module but also its effects on the students. The result of the findings have further improvements and future creation and development of the PNHS modular distance learning.
Chapter 1. This study was divided into 5 parts, which has been assembled in an order which can be simply identified and understood by the readers. This includes the introduction, purpose of the study, research question, theoretical lens, and significance of the study. Introduction. COVID-19 is a disease that is spreading in multiple countries around the world. At the same time, this situation has affected various sectors, including education, according to Rixby 2020, from mom and sir to ma, pa, ate, and kuya. Learning will not be the same again for students striving for their right to education. The Philippine education system is now adapting to the new blended learning despite the calls for an academic freeze due to the coronavirus outbreak. The Department of Education still believes that education should not be compromised. To maintain the education of millions of Filipino students, the government implemented a distant learning approach. Distance learning, also known as correspondence education or home study, is a form of education where there is little or no face-to-face interaction between students and their instructors. This type of modality has 3 categories, in which one of the highly convenient for most of the typical Filipino student is the modular distance learning. It was also the most preferred learning system of majority of parents or guardians, based on the result of the learning enrollment and survey form. Modular system is an educational system whose curriculum is made up of modules. The part of the modules are arranged so that they complete each other. Each module provides knowledge and skill towards proficiency in a field. The Department of Education will be the one to provide and distribute the self-learning modules to every student every week through their respective schools. They will have time to study and assess the modules before the start of weekly class. Students are expected to complete the task and submit their outputs at the end of the week. Open communication between the teacher to students and or teacher to parents, guardians, and also part of the norm. This is to ensure and monitor the progress of the students at home. Just the thought of studying that home gives students the feeling of freedom and luxury of being less pressured. Conversely, this modular distance learning has certain adversities.
Purpose of the study. The purpose of this phenomenological study was to explore and understand the analysis of modular learning system and its effects to the life of senior high school students as they continue their studies through modular learnings as new normal amidst the threat of COVID-19. Specifically, this study was convened for the purpose of the giving awareness to the public on how modular learning helps students to continue their studies. As this stage is the research for modular learning will be generally defined of the gateway, decrease motivation and weaken relationships between students and teachers. Research question. In order to unveil the experience of the senior high school students is the modular learning process. The following questions are contracted. Number 1. What are the experience of the senior high school students in the modular process? Number 2. How do senior high school students cope up with the problems they encountered in the modular learning process? Number 3. What are the hopes and inspiration of senior high school students to continue their studies through modular learning? Theoretical lens. J.B. Watson and B.F. Skinner Behavioral Learning Theory in 1919 focuses on the idea that all behaviors are learnings through interaction with the environment. These learning theories and behavior are learned from the environment and say that innate factors and very little influence in the behavior. J.B. Watson and B.F. Skinner behavioral learning theory is very much appropriate in this study. Senior modular learning limit and interaction of students and teachers. There is also the tendency of minimal learnings of students. There is a big difference between learning to interaction by on itself. It was proven the lack of learning. Connectedness was not as an internal factor of developing learning's insulation from learning.
Significance of the study. This paper is to address or decide if this new normal education learning is successful or not, and if it really helps to the students gain more knowledge, or it is a big hindrance to the students, parents, and also teachers. This study will help and benefit the first beneficiaries of the study, or the school administrators. This study will serve as their guidelines in monitoring the students or children who is currently facing the modular learning, that will give them an idea on how to solve the problems faced by students and teachers. Second, are the teachers. This will help them to know that the students are having a hard time with the new teaching technique. This study will give them a new objective to provide the knowledge, and will be easier for both educator and students. There are the students. Third are the students. This study will benefit the students so that they will know that also the teachers are suffering in this new style of education, in order for them to serious about the effort that their teacher does, so they can learn despite of the distance learning. Fourth are the parents. This study will serve as their guidelines in monitoring their students, children who's facing the different challenges in modular learning, in order to understand that their children need their support. Lastly, to the future researchers, this study is beneficial for them because this investigation can be their basis of their are working on the study that this is somehow related to this research study. Hopefully, this study will inspire other researchers to go deeper into the phenomenon.
Chapter 2. This research covered the background of study, definition of terms, conceptual framework, and review of related literature. Background of study. Modular learning is a form of distance learning that uses self-learning modules based on the most essential learning competencies provided by the TIP-Ed. The modules include section of motivation and assessment that serve as a complete guide for both teachers and students. Desired competencies. Now that the education system steadily adapts to the new normal, modular learning helps the learners to continue their education safely at home. Definition of terms. COVID-19, the infectious disease caused by the most recently discovered coronavirus. New normal, states to which an economy, society, etc. settles following a crisis when differs from the station of regulation prior to the start of crisis. Pandemic is defined as an epidemic occurring worldwide or over the very wide area, crossing international boundaries and usually affecting a large number of people. Learning crisis. The educational crisis in the Philippines is basically a crisis of public education. The reason of this in conflict attacks on education, funding, gender, and climate change. School closure. School closure are necessary the anticipated academic and economic impact and unintended international cooperation, a universal mode of interaction between two or more countries based on the sharing research result, production, commerce, protection of investment, and industrial know-how. Modular learning. Modular learning is a form of distance learning that uses self-learning modules based on the most essential learning competencies provided by the global recession. Global recession. A global recession is an extended period of economic decline around the world. A global recession involves more or less synchronized recessions across many national economies. Vulnerable is to be susceptible to some things about something nationally, such as disease or infection. A second meaning of vulnerable is to be capable of being physically or emotionally wounded. Virus. A virus is a microscopic infectious agent that replicates only inside the living cell of an organism. Lockdown. The confinement of the prisoners to their cells are all most of the day as a temporary security measure. Quarantine is used to keep someone who might have been exposed to COVID-19 away from others. Quarantine helps prevent spread of disease that can occur before a person knows they are sick or if they infected with the virus without feeling symptoms. View of related literature. According to the article of Popular.com, the opinion of Sensei Adorable stated that students are most vulnerable in this situation. Before, education was seen as a gateway to the brighter future. Now, education is a burden to the poor of an advantage to the affluent. Private and state universities are still finding stopgap solutions to the private quality education for all, but quality is heavily needed dependent on the level and the quality of digital access. The less influent families with limited digital devices are the ones left behind. Besides dealing with budget issues for data plans to cope with their online classes, their mental health is also strained as they cope with learning requirements in this time of crisis. This only exacerbate their learning situation. Students enroll not because they want to learn, but because they don't want to be left behind. They attend online classes and answers their modules in course packs, not because they want to learn, but because they need to comply with these requirements to get a degree and diploma. Conceptual framework, the new normal in education, an analysis of modular learning system affecting the life of experiences of senior high school students, modular distance learning features individuals instructions that allows learners to use self-learning modules in print or digital format electronic copy, whichever is applicable to the learner. The effect of modular learning to the senior high school students' advantages. Classwork can be scheduled around work and family, reduces travel time and travel costs for off-campus students. Students may have the opinion to select learning materials that meets their level of knowledge and interest, encourages students to take responsibility for their learning, facilitate learning through a variety of activities, unmotivated learning of those who are poor study habits may fall behind. Students may get lost or confused about course activities, lack of interaction between learners and instructors. Format may be too structured and visually uninterested, time-consuming to the use of serial nature of this instruction that deduce.
Methodology. In this chapter, it discusses the following methods: research design, population and sampling, instrumentation, data collection, data analysis, ethical consideration, and scope and limitation, in which it will help us to move onwards to reality and the information that it will give. In research design, our study uses descriptive research and action research design. Descriptive research provides an accurate portrayal of class or a particular individual situation or group. These studies are a means of discussing new meaning, describing what exists, determining the frequency with which something occurs, and categorizing information. It deals with everything that can be counted and measured and which has an impact on people or communities. Descriptive research involves gathering data that describe events events and then organizes, tabulates the facts, and describes the data collection. Action research involves the application of the steps, the scientific method, and the classroom problems. It refers to a wide variety of evaluative, investigative, and analytical research method designed to diagnose problems or weaknesses, whether organizational, academic, or instructional, and help educator develop practical solutions to address them quickly and efficiently. Action research may be also be applied to programs or educational techniques that are not necessarily experiencing any problems, but the educators simply want to learn more and improve. Their studies involve action. In population and sampling, our research uses random sampling and determining the sample of the study. Random sampling is one of the simplest forms of collecting data from the total population.
Instrumentation. The researcher utilizes pen and paper, recorder, questionnaires, checklists, the interview, kinds of online devices or platforms that the researcher can use to get information, and scattered sources to gather data for an action research and descriptive research. The researcher uses online surveys. Questionnaire checklist is the main instrument used in gathering the data. It was employed primarily to come up with a perception of respondents concerning the subject matter. It was stated by Good 2009. A questionnaire is a list of planned, written questions related to a particular topic with space provided for indicating the response to each question, intended for submission to a number of persons for reply. The interview technique will also be used to complement the gathering of data for the study. Interview provide information which may be confidential that may not ordinarily be given in writing. The interview, according to Rockwell 2000, is a technique in which the researcher stimulates the respondents to give the needed information for the study. Data collection. The data will be collected from the research respondents. This research is used to find out the new normal in education, which is to get the analysis in relation to modular learning system, affecting the life experiences of senior high school students. This qualitative research includes qualitative study and limited online interviews to students due to pandemic. In addition, structured and semi-structured interview will be more suitable as this has an interview guide with set of questions already been prepared to get answered. It does allow adding new questions, and interviewee can answer in whatever way he or she feels to answer the questions. Interview will be recorded by taking notes, and further interview will take place at comfortable place that both parts could feel comfortable. For the present research, sensitive topics and no personal information will be discussed. The data analysis. Doing qualitative research is about putting oneself in another person's shoes and seeing the world from that person's perspective. The most important part of data analysis is to be true to the respondents. It is their voices that the researcher is trying to hear so that they can be interpreted and reported on for others to read and to learn from. After the collection of data, the next stage is data processing. This involves a series of steps. The data was edited and checked for completeness, accuracy, and uniformity. Coded, and a code sheet was prepared using a computer-based data sheet. On completion of the data collection, the researcher checked and scrutinized each question to make sure that all the required information was obtained. Data analyzed the addiction of students through the use of a random sampling. It was found out that the data was understandable.
Ethical consideration. A lot has been said about good survey questionnaires. However, designing a questionnaire involves much more than just choosing what questions to ask. In this study, the researchers tried their best to have a good communication with the respondents. The researchers reflected on the situation of the respondents prior to their availability. No one was urged to answer the questions, as the researchers always say to the respondents, they are not obliged to do such a thing. But nevertheless, the opinions of the respondents were fully considered. Every question was asked in the convenience of the respondents, if they are fully aware and knowledgeable about it.
Scope and limitation. The study focuses on the analysis of modular learning system and how it affects the life experiences of senior high school students in Puntalinaw National High School. The data collection was conducted to the senior high school students in Puntalinaw National High School. This study did not cover other cases that are not considered as a factor that is necessary of the researchers' study. The study was done through the utilization of questionnaires of the students using only online platforms such as Messenger to gather information. The study was limited in accessing people through face-to-face amidst update pandemic that is happening timely. But with all the techniques that the researchers have used, that was enough to collect data that could support the study.
Chapter 4 Result and Discussion. In this chapter, the researcher examined and analyzed the result. The following discussion provides the general answers of the respondents. Analyze. First of all, the researchers prepare a set of questions that was answered by the respondents. The researchers use different methods to code the data in order to find out the fully understand the meaning and the ideas underlying. The data aims and objectives of the study is to answer the following research question, which are 1. What are the experiences of senior high school students in the modular process? 2. How do senior high school students cope up with the problems they encountered in modular learning process? 3. What are the hopes and aspirations of senior high school students who continue their studies through modular learning? Discussion. The participants have different opinions of how they rate the module distance learning. Two of them said that it was average and the other participant stated that it was good. They have shared their insight about it. Regardless of it, the participants are imparting the modular distance learning doesn't have excellent effect on them. The participants manage their time so that they can answer their modules and pass it on the time. Modular distance learning has been moderately effective for the different reasons. They are challenged with the modules because they learn it by themselves and strive to have the accurate answers, but also it also brings a big struggle because what the students and the module is not easy. Lastly, all the participants answered that they are not satisfied with modular distance learning because of their own different reasons.
Conclusion. The great number of activities in each module is one of the main problems that emerge in the implementation of modular distance learning. The Department of Education should consider this problem, reduce the activities, and take out the necessary topics so that mastery will be attained as much as possible. As what some of the parents said, the lesser the better. One of the concerns of the students is that they don't have enough time to answer all the modules within a week. Therefore, if DepEd cannot extend the duration of accomplishing the modules, they must lessen the activities. We all know that mistakes cannot be avoided at times. Thus, teachers should reevaluate the modules, and they must make sure that all the lessons or activities are appropriate to the needs of the learners. The case of COVID-19 in the Philippines are still in great number, so face-to-face learning is not yet possible. However, the researchers think that blended learning is also possible for places that are not affected by the virus. This can be applied in some schools located in rural areas like Puntalinaw National High School. Online learning approach could be implemented in urban areas since most of the learners have an internet connection. For the students who still cannot access the internet, they will be given special consideration by home visitation as an example. Aside from text and call, social media, particularly on Messenger, is one of the most used modes of communication between teachers, parents, and students. Therefore, teachers are recommended to be active online most of the time. They must be able to address the sentiments of some parents and students, which is to be patient enough in attending to the needs and to respond the queries immediately and regards to learning. The Department of Education and government must collaborate together towards the success of Philippine educational system despite the COVID-19 pandemic. It is imperative that every school must be provided with support and enough funds. The Department of Education should give autonomy and freedom to teachers and every school to do their own modules. However, modules must be validated for the quality assurance and the progress will be monitored. Recommendation. From the survey conducted, several recommendations were gathered.
the methods and strategies suggested by the students to school to further improve the modular distance learning, a reduction of activities from the modules, more examples for each subject, home visitation once a week, limited face-to-face class or blended learning, provision of colored printed modules, immediate information given by teachers on what to answer in the modules, online consultation with students, responsiveness of teachers through the use of social media platforms, and leniency of teachers in the submission of students' outputs. The appropriate interventions to be provided for struggling learners from what the researchers concluded are consistent consultation through text, call, and through other social media platforms, organization of community learning facilitators or CLF, home visitation for direct tutorials, simplification of modules, and immediate note feedback made by the teachers which are written in vernacular language. For parents, teachers can give them assistance through text and call, community facilitating, consultation and posting updates on social media, and by giving them words of encouragement.
Once again, this is our research study, a practical research presented to the faculty of the Senior High Department of Puntalinaw National High School, entitled The New Normal in Education, an analysis of improving the quality of distance modular learning and its effect to the life experiences of senior high school students of Puntalinaw National High School.
So, thank you.